أهلا، عدنا لكم من جديد في حلقة ثالثة من بودكاست رمسه بعنوان Employability. معنا ضيف جديد.
And I'm Kelsey O'Brien.
Kelsey, hi.
Hiya, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Today we're talking about your journey.
Yeah,
You're ready for it?
I am, yeah, I think so.
Can you give the audience a brief about you?
Yeah, so my name is Kelsey O'Brien. I recently graduated from John Moores University where I was studying business management, and I now work as a marketing manager for an organisation called Big Help Group here in Liverpool.
Yes, that's interesting. So can you give us more about what did you study from the beginning of the school, then the uni?
Yeah. So I started my journey at John Moores in 2019. So my course was 4 years long as I decided to switch course once I did my first year. So I originally went in to study finance and very quickly realised that finance probably wasn't the journey for me. Whoever let me onto that course made a really bad mistake. So I decided to change over to just business management with a focus on marketing, as it was something that I realised I had a true passion for. During my studies, I think I realised that it was definitely something I wanted to go into and go down the consultancy route of helping people with their businesses and their marketing plans. And that's something I've been able to do, luckily. And I got linked with my employer through John Moores. So I've been really lucky to kind of join the uni and get a job out of it. And the uni have really supported me through that.
There is a reason that you choose John Moores over uni.
There was a reason I chose John Moores, and it was actually based on the handball team. So I picked all of my universities based on if they had a handball team or not. And yeah, John Moores just really stood out to me as it was a sports uni, and it was definitely something I was passionate about when I was applying. And when they got back to me with the courses, it really stood out, and it was what I chose.
Yeah. So, okay, you mentioned that you find finance is not the right path for you.
Yes.
So how did you choose it in the first time?
So I first chose it, to be honest, because I just thought it'd be a really good path to go down, and I thought it'd be a really good degree to hold. I thought it'd be something that would open up a lot of doorways for me and a lot of pathways. And halfway through, I realised I was numeric dyslexic. So it's actually something where you read numbers backwards.
Yeah.
So I would get the formula all correct, and the lecturers were really impressed that I got the formula, which was the most difficult part. But they couldn't quite figure out where I'd got the final sum from. And then when they'd check back through my work, they'd realise that I initially wrote the equation down wrong because I had reversed a 4 and a 5 in the actual initial equation. So I realised that when it came to exams, I probably wouldn't do too well. So I decided it was probably time to switch and maybe not do the finance side of things.
I think I remember you get injured that year.
Yes. Yeah.
So did you feel stress in that year more than the other years when you changed your major?
I did, yeah. So I had the option to change halfway through and not do the first year over again. But what I would have had to have done, because I'd done the course for about 5 months at that point, I would have had to catch up. So I was summing up, what option I should do. And I decided to complete that first year and then do a second first year. And during my second first year, lockdown happened and COVID hit. So it was actually quite a stressful time trying to figure out how to navigate a whole different degree without kind of the support that we probably should have had.
When the time you feel it's not the right path for me? Is it in the first semester, second semester, or after exams, assignments?
Oh, yeah, it was definitely in first semester. After realising that I kept writing the numbers down wrong. And I was finding the formulas really easy and the equations really easy. It was just the initial actually not being able to read the number that was actually quite stressful. And I think there wasn't much that the university could do there because it's not a problem that they could help with.
How did you get over the stress? You've been I think you get the stress also in the second major.
Yes.
In 2 years.
Yeah.
Every student has the same thing.
Exactly.
Especially assignment timing or like the final exams.
Yeah.
I'm one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I know how it feels. So how do you get the overstress?
I think for me, the way I get overstressed is through sport. So I play a lot of sport, and whenever I'm feeling extra stressed, I just kind of channel that into the game and into the workout. And I think it's a really important thing to have an extracurricular activity. And I'll always say, if you're in university, definitely join a society or a sports team, as it gives you a second family, really, that you can kind of go to with those things that you need help with. And I think also I always say I don't stress about anything that hasn't happened yet, or I try not to. So if I'm stressing about an exam that's a month away, I try and remind myself that I've got a month's time and try not to stress too much, because the exam hasn't happened yet and I'm not going to help myself by stressing.
Yeah, I think the audience will hear that you're in a handball team.
Yes.
So you need to mention that and tell them like how's your journey in handball, especially in uni. And she's the coach now. You can see that.
Yeah. So I started playing handball when I was 14, and I went from doing dance to handball, which are two very, very different pathways. Dance is quite relaxed.
Especially it's not famous in the UK, handball.
It's not famous in the UK, no. It's really unpopular. I found out about it through, I went to school in London, and I found out about it then. They came into our school and kind of picked some students to come along and join. And the minute I started playing, I kind of realised that it was definitely something I wanted to carry on with. It really helped me channel any stress or anger or frustration I might have had. It is a contact sport, so that does help. And I just carried on playing all throughout, and now I do coach the John Moores girls, and they're doing really well.
We finished about like uni.
Yeah.
Just a question. When you were like in school, so you have the same feeling like I want to enter like finance or business or marketing in uni? Or do you have like different dream to study?
I always wanted to be a nurse, but I was always really torn between the two. And I think that always showed in my job history, because I've worked in the NHS for a very long time, and I still do pick up the occasional shift on the bank in the NHS. I think because it's something I'll never let go of, is that passion of caring for other people. And I think, but when I was young, I did want to go into marketing, and I started working in marketing at the age of 14. And I think that's helped me in my career now kind of progress, because I started so early.
I think in your job journey, I think you mentioned like my few background about you. You have been like a manager of a restaurant, I think 14 years old?
Yes. Well, no, 17. Yeah, so I started working when I was 13, and I got my first job in a cafe. And then that went from there to being a waitress in a steakhouse in London. It was the first fully halal steakhouse in London, and I was the only English staff member, the only female staff member. And it was a very interesting journey to start. There was 4 of us in the restaurant, and I started as a normal waitress, and I then got promoted to a senior waitress and then head waitress. And from that, I then ended up being one of the assistant managers, helping them run the restaurant, and I was 17. And it was very stressful, and it was full time while I was doing school.
How did you get accepted? Like, because you're 13 years old and you're working in a cafe.
It definitely wasn't legal.
Yeah, I know.
So I think I went in, and I just said to them I need a job, and it was cash in hand. So it was like all off the books, and it was this little like greasy spoon cafe opposite a fire station. And the only customers that ever came in were the firemen for their like tea and toast in the morning. And I was the girl that buttered the toast at the back of the restaurant.
I think it will be in the summer vacation, yeah?
No, it was all year round. So I used to do it. I'd go in the morning. So it started at 5 a.m. So I'd go in at 5 a.m. before school, and then I'd work until 7, and I'd do all the breakfasts at that time. And then I'd go and I'd do school. And then I'd come back in the evening to do the evening shift, like the dinners and things. That was straight after school.
I think you mentioned the halal steak.
Yes.
Yeah? I think you participate in Ramadan.
I did, yeah.
Can you tell the audience like how it was? Like you participate in Ramadan?
Yeah.
Somehow, yeah.
It was really interesting. I think it's such a beautiful religion, and it's such a beautiful thing that they do. And while I was working there, I did participate. So I worked there for 4 years. So for 4 years, I participated in Ramadan. And it was difficult for me because it was the first time I was doing it. And I was living with my family at the time who were all British and weren't participating. So that was quite difficult because you were kind of doing it alone. And when I go to work, it was great because I break the fast in work with the dates and the water, but you would actually have to wait until you finished your shift at 12, like midnight, to sit down and eat. And I'd sit down with all the owners and the chefs, and we'd sit and they'd cook like a big feast, and we'd sit and we'd eat, and it was really beautiful. And they taught me how to eat with my hands. The first couple of times I did it, I was like eating with a knife and fork, and they kept telling me off, and they was like, no, you can't do that, that's awful. You have to eat with your hands because it tastes better, and you can like properly taste the food if you eat with your hands and things.
But how did you feel like eating with your hands?
I really enjoyed it. I think it opened you up to a side of the culture that I think you just need to embrace when you're partaking in something like that. I think you need to fully partake, not just a little bit. And I think embracing the culture fully was really enjoyable for me, and I learned so much about myself. And I think still now, I stole all the recipes from the chefs. And if I make a curry at home, like we'll eat it with the naan and the papadum with our hands and things. Because I just think you take those things and they become part of your everyday life then. And I think it's really important to respect that culture and partake, especially when you're surrounding yourselves with the people whose culture it is.
Like, do you recommend any like person, like especially English,
Sorry?
do you recommend for like English people to participate in Ramadan?
I do. I think everyone should partake once. I think to understand the culture fully, you should embrace it and partake. And I think it's really beautiful, and you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about self-restraint and how much actual mental power you have within yourself. It's something that I never thought I'd be able to do, is go all day without having any water. I think that was the most difficult part for myself.
I think water is like for everyone.
Yeah, it was really difficult, and it was very challenging, especially when you're working. And I think it wasn't something I ever really realised before, because you think, well, every year you partake in Ramadan and you're still working and you're still doing your everyday tasks, and you've got this extra pressure and this extra challenge on top of you, and your energy is low and your mood may be low because you're partaking in this thing and you're not eating and you're not drinking. So it is really challenging, and I think you learn a lot about your mental strength doing it.
I think then we're waiting for you this Ramadan to join us.
Yeah, maybe I might have to join. I did say, didn't I? I said I'd love to join and come to one of your dinners and things.
We're managing one this year, so you're
definitely invite me down.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go for the jobs. You mentioned like at 13 you worked in a cafe.
Yes.
After it in a steakhouse.
Yeah.
Till 17 years old.
Yeah, till 17. It was around 17.
Then
yeah.
What's after it?
So when I was like just turning 17, I quit the steakhouse to go travelling for a month because I had never really gone on holiday before. So I went to Portugal for a month and did that. And then when I came back, I needed to get another job. And I applied for a small, like individually owned Italian place near my house in London. And doing that, I was head waitress there. And I got that job, and that was really enjoyable. And that's when I started kind of working in marketing. So I ran all of their social media while I was there. So waitress and social media while I was doing college.
I think that's the time that you have been the manager of the restaurant.
Yeah, so that's the time that so the owner would go away for prolonged periods of time, and he wouldn't tell anyone where he was going. And he'd just hand you the keys to his restaurant. And he used to go, if anyone calls the restaurant, don't tell them I've left the country, just tell them I'm off sick. And I was like 17 with the keys to this restaurant and just kind of looking at him.
Of course, there's like some persons that are also like working with you, but like for like more like 4 years, 5 years in the restaurant, why did they choose you as a manager?
I think it was just because I was there every day. I didn't have any choice but not to work. So, I supported myself financially. So it was when you have no option, you just do what is necessary to kind of survive and get along. So even though you were doing college, I was doing college every day, I was also then working. So I was coming straight from college to do work and then working until 1 a.m, 2 a.m, going home, waking up, going to college again.
Yeah.
So I think it was just that I was there every day and they trusted me to be there, and they knew that if a job had to be done, I'd do it.
Did you face anything like at that time? Like you're a manager at 17, you have like older workers, like employees. Like they say like, oh, we have like a manager like 70 years old. We need to respect, we need that. Did you face anything like, because you're 17?
Yeah, I think the people that mainly had an issue with it were customers. So they'd ask for the manager and you'd be like, oh yeah, I'm the manager on shift today. And they'd be like, no, get me someone older. And at the time, all of our chefs spoke really broken English. So they were Italian, and they could just about kind of communicate. And it was, you'd go, oh, well, you can either speak to me and I can resolve it, or the only other older person in the building is our head chef, who unfortunately speaks broken English, so he won't be able to resolve the issue. And customers weren't too impressed because I looked quite young as well. And even though you didn't tell anyone your age, and no one that I worked with knew my age either, so only myself and the owner at the time knew my age. We just didn't disclose it to anyone else because we didn't think it was necessary or any of their business.
So I think after that you start your uni.
Sorry?
After that job, you start your uni?
No. So I then worked for Calvin Klein. So I worked there and it still wasn't enough. So I then worked in Calvin Klein as a sales associate. So just on the shop floor, doing the tills, the stock, serving people, things like that. And then I started uni.
So I think most people here, they study and have a job.
Yes.
Especially like because I think you have the loan.
The maintenance loan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think they give you a loan for studying.
Yes.
University loan.
Yeah.
So is it like working to have a salary, or like working to have to pay it out?
So I think it depends on the student. So from my experience, you get 2 loans when you're a British student. So you get the main loan, which pays for your study and pays the fees, and then you can apply for something called a maintenance loan, which gets paid to you every 3 months, and that is what pays the student accommodation and things. So I think a lot of students don't work. I worked because I didn't have financial support from my parents. So after the maintenance loan, which didn't cover my rent, so it would cover part of my rent, I then had to work on top of that to cover the rest of my rent and anything else that I wanted to spend money on, because I didn't have financial support from anyone else.
Okay. Then what about the NHS working? So did you work while in your university?
Yes. So when I moved back to Liverpool for university, and when I got here, I started applying for jobs, and I realised that I wanted to move on from working in the restaurant industry and wanted to go into healthcare, as that's what I'd studied in college originally. So I started applying and got a role as a healthcare assistant in the NHS.
I think I remember once you told us about a mental health or something.
Yeah. So I used to work on the mental health ward. It was very interesting. No day was ever the same. And I loved it. I loved looking after the people. I loved hearing their stories and just meeting someone different every day.
Can you mention one of like the most stories that has been like stuck in your mind?
Yeah, I think there was some patients that we always had, and it was always the older generation of patients. They'd come in and they'd lost family members and things, and they'd have the most interesting life stories because they had lived through so much that we would never experience now as a newer generation. And they had so much wisdom, and you'd learn so much from them. And they'd tell you so many stories about their childhood and growing up and their parents and their fathers going to war. And I could sit and listen to them for hours because I just think they wanted to talk and they wanted someone to listen to them. And being able to offer that ear for them to tell a story to was always amazing.
While all these like jobs, till now.
Yeah.
You need to mention the last job you have, like I think the marketing now.
So I work in marketing now. Yeah.
Which company I think or organization?
Yeah. So they're called Big Help Group. So they are an organisation that fund other businesses essentially. So one of my main responsibilities is working for their charity. So they have a charity called Big Help Project that help anyone in poverty. Mm-hmm. So they want to empower people into a place where they can fight for their own. So they help with employability advice. So if you're struggling to get a job, they can help you there. If you're struggling with your bills, they can help you. They run food banks. They assist with fuel vouchers. So if you have no money for electricity or gas, they help you with that. They help new mothers with baskets of baby items, nappies, clothing for the children. So they have such a wide range of services that people can reach out and use. And that's a very big chunk of my job as well. Is it
a charity organization?
So part of it, yeah. So the organization that I'm employed by, one of the arms of their company is the charity, but they also have lots of other businesses that they run. So I run all of those as well for the marketing side.
How do you market? You're marketing the charity organization.
Yes.
So how do you market it? Because it's a charity, so I think it's different than an organization or a business.
Oh yeah, it's really different to marketing a product, for example. So the way that we do our marketing is it's all volunteer and service user led. So we tell stories, we ask people to come in and explain how the charities help them, what the charities help them with. We get the volunteers to come in and explain why they volunteer, what volunteering does for them, and we promote it that way. Mm-hmm. So instead of trying to promote a product or a service, we're promoting the people that use the products and use the services or help the organisation. And the volunteers are the heart of the charity, so we always want to highlight them and make sure that they have a platform to speak out on.
I think that's interesting, to be honest.
Yeah.
I see your TikToks every day.
Yeah.
your daily walking, your outfit, your coffee.
Yeah. So I enjoy making those. So they're what I make on my personal account. So I just have fun making TikToks and things, and that is part of my job, and it helps promote it in a way that's organic.
Yeah. Okay. For all these jobs, I think there's funny stories you can mention that you never forget.
Yeah. Okay. So I think one of my favorite stories is when I was working in the steakhouse, and a table had been eating food and they'd finished their dinner and they asked for a pot of green tea. So I brought the green tea over on a tray with 2 cups, because that's what we'd offer. So you get a pot and 2 cups. And they'd asked for extra cups, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll go grab those for you now. And I brought the cups out, and they weren't happy with how many tea bags were in. So the portion was 2 bags for a pot of tea, and then you get 2 cups. So I was like, oh, well, you'd have to buy another pot of tea, because we can't just put 6 tea bags in a pot. And they were really unhappy, and they literally just threw the pot of tea all over me. And it was so painful. And I remember running off into the bathroom and just cooling down with cold water. And I didn't have a change of clothes, but I couldn't go home because we were short-staffed. So I had to wear the chef's apron for the rest of the shift. So I had this big white pinafore on for the rest of the shift. And he was a very tall, big man. And I'm very small. I'm 5 foot. And I think I was probably smaller back then. So I just had this, and it went below my knees, and it looked like a dress. And I just looked really silly for the rest of the shift.
I think that day you never forget it.
No, never. I think when anyone asks, oh, what's your worst waitress in horror story, it's always that one, because you really get a lot of things thrown over you when you're working in a restaurant, that people believe that they're entitled to things. They'll throw anything over you. They'll have ketchup, mayonnaise, chips thrown at me, anything you could imagine.
And underage that?
No, adults. So adults will throw things at you if you're...
but you are...
Oh, I was underage.
Yeah. So
I was 16, 17.
Yeah, so...
Yeah.
they took a risk. They took a risk for like throwing mayonnaise or chips.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous, isn't it? And I think parents coming in and their kids just running all over the restaurant, and it was quite a fancy restaurant as well. It was like silver service, and their kids would just be running around like knocking tables over, knocking people's drinks all over the place. And you'd ask, oh, like, you know, can you ask your kids to sit down? And then they'd scream at you, and they're like, don't tell me how to parent my kids. And you're like, I wasn't. I was just asking you to ask them to sit down.
Oh, especially Scousers.
Yeah. Well, this was in London.
Oh.
Yeah. So this was in like East London, Barking Road, and you could never believe it. Whenever it happened, your jaw was always on the floor, and you're just like, I actually can't believe that's just happened.
Yeah. As you've been like accepted like in so many jobs.
Yeah.
What do you think like the most important thing in the CV?
I think the most important thing on your CV is highlighting your skills and your experience. Mm-hmm. And even if you don't have any professional experience, I think it's really important to include any volunteering work that you've done, any work that you've done with societies when you're in university. So like yourself, you know, you're a big part of the societies that you're in. I think including that experience on your CV, if you don't have any professional experience, is really big. And making sure that it's clear and concise and it's got a good structure to it. I think one mistake that a lot of people make with CVs is including a picture. And if you put a picture on a CV, when they go through the automated check-in system, it automatically rejects the CV because it can't read the images. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't know. And that was only something I found out really recently when I was employing for the job myself. So we've recently just employed someone on my team, and I didn't realise that submitting pictures with CVs actually got them instantly rejected by softwares that Indeed use. And that was something I learned really recently. So I think that's something to really take note of.
Like for us, because it's like difficult to have a job like back at home, especially if you're under 18. Mm-hmm. And if you get a job, you can mention it in the CV. Yeah. Because it would be like in a shop or something. Yes. It's not that important or like in the CV. Yeah. So as a new staff or a CV. Yeah. And I don't have any experience. Mm-hmm. What do you advise like to mention in the CV?
So I'd mention all of the work that you're doing within the university, so with the societies and things. So if you're president of a society, that's something so important that you need to put on that CV, because no, it's not professional experience, but you're doing so much and you're gaining so much knowledge and experience within doing that matters and is really important to have on there. And I think that's something that people forget. They think, oh, well, that's part of my university experience, but well, actually you're learning so many valuable skills that make sure you're putting that on your CV. Whatever you're doing extracurricular, put that on there. And any training that you've done, put that. There's so many free Google training documents that you can do that are amazing to build up your CV as well.
Yeah, that's the difference, because here in the UK, these are important in the CV. But in Oman, back home, if I mentioned like I'm a player in handball, so like, what's that?
They wouldn't.
Yeah. It's only like a handball player. We didn't need it. Yeah. You know, so I don't have any experience, and I don't have any volunteering. So how like will I get accepted in like back home job? That's a difficult thing that we have. As you see here, like you can find a job like cash in hand in 13. And that 13 like years old or 14, you have experience. Yeah, you can mention the CV. Yes. So that's the difference. You know, we want to mention that in this episode. Like as you see here, you can get a job easily by using like simple things like a handball player or the treasurer in a society, a president or a member in a society. Yeah, it's make difference here. Yes. But back home, you say like I don't need these things. I just need like marks, GPA, the university rank. That's difficult for us to find a job there.
No, I can imagine it. I think it sounds really difficult, and I don't think I could imagine being in that situation. And I imagine it adds a lot of stress to you graduating, because I imagine it's quite a daunting thing to know that you haven't been able to get that professional experience, and going into that and doing those applications must be so challenging. And is there a difference between a student that would come here and a student that would study back home within applying for jobs back home? Would there be a difference in that, and how would that kind of leverage?
Yeah, it's different for us, like, and it's difficult too. But for us, like, maybe we can have like an one more step because we're studying like outside abroad, like international students here. But when you go like back at home, they say like we need the GPA mark, we need the university rank, you know, that's thing. So why are we facing this thing? And we have lack of jobs too.
Yeah.
So we need to have a training, we have a placement, and as you see here, it's hard to find like a placement here.
Yeah.
Also for like English people, like the UK citizens here, you can find like a placement here easily.
No, it is difficult.
Because for me, I have applied for like 10 maybe. I get rejected all.
Yeah.
So I said like no more for applying. Like, so I don't know which should I do more. But I will mention all of these that I have done in the CV.
Yeah.
If I will apply here in the UK.
Yes.
Well, if I apply it in Oman, like it won't help me out, like because they don't need it. But that's the difference here.
Yeah, no, it sounds difficult.
Yeah. You mentioned about the organization you're working for.
Yes.
It helps the international students.
They do.
Find a job.
Yeah.
You can help out the audience here, especially for the students here in Liverpool.
Yeah. So Big Help Project, the charity, they have an employability team. One of the employability members, her name's Rebecca. I did try to get some business cards to bring today, but she didn't have any to hand. But I can definitely give you her email and you can put it on if you like. And she's more than happy for anyone to email her. She helps anyone that isn't, British. So any international person coming over to find a job in the UK. So she has support in that, and she will book a meeting with you and she'll sit down and go over the CV and go over any contacts that she might have that'll fit you. And she has a 90% success rate of getting non-British people into work. And I think it's a great thing that they do. And she really, really just wants to help people and help them understand how they can get a job and really support them in that. And it doesn't just stop at getting the job either. And I think that's a lot of things that people have a misconception of, is she helps with everything. So she's got people GPs here, she's got people doctor's appointments, she's got them dentist appointments, she's got their children into classes and healthcare and childcare and things like that. So the help doesn't just stop with employability, but it really goes that extra mile and kind of make sure that you're supported and set up.
Okay, that's good. I think most students will use that. I think it will be helping them to find a job, especially for students like they don't want to be like don't want to finish their journey here in the UK, especially Liverpool. Maybe they can use that thing and get a job here. Yeah,
definitely. I will give you the email.
Is it the job? Like it depends on the thing that you do in university. Like I'm accounting and finance student, so I will get a job in that major or like in different majors.
So she can definitely help you, and I think it's more of a conversation to have with that team. But she'll look at what qualifications you have and what experience you have, and help you there to move on and try and match you to a job that fits. I think of a lot of her clients that come over have been educated in their home country and come to the UK for whatever reason, and they're applying for jobs and they're really struggling to kind of find something because for whatever reason their qualification doesn't translate over or their experience doesn't translate over. So again, that's something she'll help with, where she looks at their experience and she says, oh, hang on a minute, that actually translates to this UK qualification. And then she discovers that they're actually more qualified than a lot of people in the UK to do the jobs that they're doing. So it is amazing work that she does, and I think it'd be a really, really helpful service to have.
I think everyone will thank you about this.
Yeah.
Okay, what's your work-life dynamics nowadays, especially after uni?
Yeah, I think work-life balance is difficult when you work in marketing because when you go home at 5 o'clock, the inbox doesn't turn off, especially when you're doing something that's charitable. So we get people messaging us and their electricity or their gas has been cut off. That doesn't stop at 5 o'clock when you go home. So even though, yeah, you finish work at 5 and you go home, you're still replying to the messages. So I think it's really difficult to kind of balance that with your personal life because you don't want to ignore people when they're in need. So you will reply and then you end up, you know, an hour later, you're still talking to them about what advice that we could offer them. So I think it's definitely something that I need help with is adjusting to a work-life balance because I think I get too passionate about my job and end up carrying it over into hours that I definitely shouldn't be.
Do you think like university life is better than working life now? Do you think I want to go back to uni?
I think some different times, yes.
Especially night out.
Yeah, I think the social aspect of university is great. The flexibility of university is great. I think now I struggle a lot. Sorry. I struggle a lot more because you have to book time off work and you have to, you know, you only have your weekends off. The way in university, if something came up on a Wednesday and you didn't have a lecture after 12 o'clock, then you could go. The way with work, it's, you know, 9 to 5 and you have to book that time off in advance. So I think I miss that aspect of university is kind of the flexibility of it.
Yeah. I think we finished all the questions.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, we can have in the ending. I would like to thank you for accepting our invite.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to have you here and they listen to your stories. We have a small present for you here.
Oh, you shouldn't have.
Yeah, it's Oman team t-shirt.
Oh my god, no, I'm so excited about this. So Aziz went to Oman last year and bought all of the men on the handball team an Oman top. And I was so unbelievably jealous. So I'm actually going to wear this with complete pride to handball training because I was so jealous when you came back and all of the lads had a Oman top and I didn't. I really love. Thank you so much. Oh, I love it.
وفي الختام نشكركم لحسن المشاهدة. شاركونا آرائكم عن الحلقة وشاركوا المنظمة أي أسئلة أنتم محتاجونها عشان نعرف أكثر عن المنظمة وعن القابلية في قبول في العمل في بريطانيا. وكل الحسابات والإيميلات بتلقوها في الوصف في تحت البوست. Kelsey, if you want to add something in the ending.
I just want to say thank you so much for having me. I hope you've enjoyed it and I hope I didn't talk for too much. But yeah, thank you for having me. I hope you enjoyed watching and definitely check out all the services that we spoke about and have a little look at Big Help Project on Instagram to see if they can help you with anything.
Thank you.